In the bustling heart of Chicago, David Lynn, the CEO of Apex Bank, embarked on a discreet mission. Disguised in a faded hoodie and jeans, he blended into the crowd, far removed from the polished image typically associated with his title. As he entered Branch 314, the sleek marble floors and modern decor felt alien, now viewed through the eyes of an ordinary customer. For months, customer satisfaction ratings had plummeted, and complaints surged. The board demanded answers, but David knew that mere statistics wouldn't reveal the truth. He needed to feel the frustrations of his clients firsthand. As he waited in line, David noted the expressions of those around him: frustration, disappointment, and resignation. His attention was drawn to a heated exchange nearby. A businessman, Ethan Reynolds, stood in a tailored suit, his voice rising in anger. 20 years of loyalty. I've never missed a payment, and yet my loan application is rejected without explanation. An elderly woman beside him, clutching a tattered handbag, nodded in sympathy. I'm in the same boat. My life savings, all gone. No one can tell me why. David's stomach churned. He knew loan denials and account issues were not uncommon, but this felt different. He edged closer, pretending to read a brochure while listening intently. My sister faced the same issue, Ethan continued, lowering his voice. They kept suggesting she make an unofficial payment to speed things up. The elderly woman gasped, her eyes wide. You mean a bribe? Just then, a teller called out, Mrs. Miller. The elderly woman sighed and shuffled toward the counter, her shoulders heavy with despair. David watched as she tried to explain her plight to the disinterested teller, who recited scripted responses without empathy. I'm sorry, but your transactions appear to be authorized, the teller said, her tone flat. Please, I just want answers. Mrs. Miller's voice cracked, but her words fell on deaf ears. As David's phone buzzed, he glanced at the notification. His own loan application had been denied. This was absurd, his credentials were impeccable. Panic and suspicion flooded his mind as he began to connect the dots between Mrs. Miller's lost savings, Ethan's denial, and whispers of bribery. Suddenly, a commotion erupted. Mrs. Miller was raising her voice, demanding to see the branch manager. Security approached, and David's heart sank as they escorted her out, her protests echoing in the lobby. Determined to uncover the truth, David made his way to the teller. I need to discuss my loan denial, and I won't take no for an answer. Sitting across from Sarah, the loan officer, he felt the weight of the situation. Mr. Lynn, the algorithm's decision is final, she said, shuffling through papers nervously. David noticed a sticky note on her desk with a phone number and the words, call for special approvals. When she saw him looking, she crumpled it and tossed it away. Which criteria did I fail to meet? David pressed, pulling out his documentation. Sometimes, the system identifies risk factors that aren't obvious, she replied, lowering her voice. However, there are alternative channels for loan approval. It could be expedited if you're interested. The implication was clear, a bribe. David felt anger rising but composed himself. How much would that cost? $5,000 cash for a $50,000 loan. Before he could respond, a distraught woman burst in, pleading for help with her mother's account. Sarah dismissed her coldly, and David watched in disbelief as security escorted the woman out. He had seen enough. Standing up, he casually inquired about who handled the special approvals, jotting down the name and number of Mel Wong, a senior coordinator who had recently been promoted. As he left the bank, David's phone buzzed again. An anonymous text warned, "You're asking dangerous questions. Back off while you can." Chills ran down his spine. His undercover mission had revealed something far more sinister. The next morning, David called Jenna, his trusted internal auditor. "I need you to run an audit on all loan rejections in the past 6 months. Focus on high credit scores and any unusual account discrepancies. As he drove home, he noticed a black sedan trailing him. Someone was watching. When he met Jenna later, she handed him a USB drive. "I found evidence of a fraud network. The loan denials and account issues are just the surface. They're using our bank to finance something much bigger." David's heart raced as she detailed patterns of financial manipulation targeting vulnerable clients. "Get to safety," he urged Jenna, realizing the danger they were in. After she left, he examined the USB drive in a secure location. Among the files, he discovered a plan named Project Sentinel, detailing an operation using financial pressure to control key individuals in sensitive positions. As he pieced together the evidence, he heard footsteps approaching. Hiding behind a server rack, he recognized two voices, Mel Wong and his own chief of security, Tom Bradford. "He's getting too close," Tom warned. "We need to deal with him." David's heart raced as he realized the extent of the conspiracy. After they left, he knew he had to act quickly. He reached out to Ethan Reynolds, who had connections from his time in the FBI. Together, they devised a plan to expose the corruption. They needed more allies, people who had faced similar issues. As evening approached, they set a trap at an abandoned warehouse where key players of the conspiracy were scheduled to meet. David arrived, his heart pounding. He knew he was walking into danger, but he had to see it through. Inside, he heard familiar voices discussing the next phase of their operation. Just as they seemed ready to finalize their plans, David activated a hidden camera, broadcasting the evidence live to law enforcement agencies. Chaos erupted as agents stormed in, arresting the conspirators. Later, as David sat in his office, the news broke: the banking conspiracy had been exposed. But something didn't feel right. The narrative was being controlled, and key elements were buried. His phone buzzed with a new message: "You've uncovered part of the truth, but there's more to this story." David's instincts kicked in. He had to dig deeper. Days later, he learned of a high-stakes meeting involving the remaining executives. With Jenna's help, he infiltrated the gathering, revealing the full extent of the corruption and espionage. As the dust settled, David transformed Apex Bank. New transparency measures were implemented, and trust was restored among the customers. This journey had changed him. He had become an advocate for ethical banking, ensuring that their institution served the people, not exploited them. As he looked out at the city skyline, he knew the fight against corruption was far from over. But with each step, they were creating a system built on integrity, one transaction at a time.